Today I'm going to be showing you how to remove the rear and front wheels. I'm doing tire replacement. Mine are pretty much had it. They're over 20,000 kilometers on each one. We'll do the back one first. That's the easiest one. There are a series of 5 lug nuts, which I'll show you shortly. And it comes off just like a car tire. The tool needed for that is I've got a breaker bar here, a long breaker bar with 1/2-inch drive. On the breaker bar I've got an extension and a 19mm socket. So that will be used to break loose those 5 lug nuts. Then the wheel just slides off to the left and drops down. I'm fortunate I've got a lift. If you don't have a lift, you can do this using the center stand, but you're going to have to take off the back fender to bring the wheel straight back. To take off the rear fender, it's a series of 4 bolts, very easy to do. Bottom left, bottom right, and up inside where the just above the license plate. See, finger here. My finger is pointing at it, so the right top of the fender where that opening is, screw there, and corresponding screw on the left hand side where my finger is pointing to, right there. Those 4 screws. The back doesn't have to come off, the rear lights don't have to come off, nothing else. So 4 screws, you take off the rear fender, and one word of caution, there's an electrical connector for your license plate light there. So when you slide this off, you'll see an electrical connection at the back. Just unclip that. Then your wheel can come straight back. Okay, here's looking from the ground up inside the wheel where the 5 lug nuts are. And just like a car, as I said. Now to get the force on this, you're going to have to do one of 2 things. Service manual says to engage the rear wheel. You can do that, of course, by the lever or by the pedal, but I'm going to just put it in gear. It's a lot easier. So I'm going to put the bike in gear. I usually just use 2nd gear, so 1 up. 1st gear would be fine, but you've got more of a torque advantage. I guess it's possible you could move the engine, turn the engine over in 1st gear, so 2nd or higher gear would be just fine. So to do that, of course, just take your gear shift and click it 1 up. Make sure the back tire's engaged. Now it is. You can even go 1 higher if you want. Go up to 3rd. So I did that up to 3rd gear, and now I'm going to put the breaker bar in there. Unfortunately, I can't hold the camera and do that. I'm just going to loosen all 5 bolts, take the lug nuts off, and pull the tire off. Okay, tire's dropped off. You can see the 5 studs for the lug nuts and go through the wheel. They've got anti-seize on them, and I'm going to put a little bit of anti-seize on when I install the new wheel. And you can see the rotor here, caliper, everything's nice and clean. Very easy to do. Reinstalling, put the wheel on. As I said, anti-seize and torque successively to 80 foot-pounds. I usually do them halfway first, 40, in a star pattern, alternating just like a car, and finish off at 80 foot-pounds, and you're done. Now the next question, probably for an F6B owner who doesn't have a center stand, what do? You can lay the bike down on the right-hand side on the crash bars, the one in front of the right saddlebag, the one up here in front of the engine. You can lay the whole bike over. There's some YouTubes that show that already. I'm not going to obviously go through that. Don't need to do that. And that's basically it. I'm going to show you the tires in a second, the new versus the old. Okay, here's the old wheel and tire over here. And I had picked this up off eBay. It's the rear wheel. They're easy to find. It's a takeoff from a trike. It's in brand new condition. Balanced, of course. It even has the TPMS on here, which I don't need in Canada. We don't have that, but I've got it anyway. Now it's time to remove the front wheel, so I can get that off. We're going to get the front wheel off, take off the rotors, and in my case I have an ABS sensor ring, which I'll show you after because my F6B in Canada has ABS. And we'll take the front tire and wheel off, and then I'll get the tires changed out, and then we'll put the wheel back on. Don't be intimidated by this. It's very easy. If you can change the oil on your bike, you can take off your front wheel. Alright, the first thing that has to come off is this front piece of the fender, which goes from the front of the tire back to the forks. And this is called fender A in the service manual. And to take it off, there are 4 hex screws, 5mm, 2 on the left and 2 corresponding on the right. So I'll do that right now. I've taken off the right side, and you notice that those hex screws are not the same length. The longer one is from the lower position, and the shorter one is from the higher position. So lower one from the bottom, longer one from the top, or shorter one from the top. I'll take off these right 2 now. I loosen them, and I've just got a T-handle here. It's really fast. Let's take those out. There's the top side, shorter. Good thing it didn't get lost. Bottom one is the longer. And there are 2 rubber washers on the bottom of that front fender that stay in place. Those do not come out, or at least they shouldn't. It's no fun using a tool. On this one, the rubber washer did come out. So the longer one on the bottom's got a rubber washer, the shorter one on the top does not have a washer. Okay, now I'm just going to wiggle the fender, and it'll just come straight forward, just pop right off, like so. If you notice here, I have a fork brace on mine. If you have a fork brace on yours, it stays. You no need to take it off or loosen it or anything like that. Now, we have 2 remaining covers left. These are called I think they're called I'm not sure what they're called, brake covers, fork covers. Anyway, at the back here we have 2 covers, and they are held on with also 5mm hex, 1 and 2. I'll take those off. Alright, I've taken those 2 hex screws out, one here, and this little cover then just pulls away like so. These are the 2 screws. They're identical in size, so we've got the left and right side to do. I've shown you the left side. Now, what do we got? We've got the left caliper, which is over here. This has to be removed, and I'll show you how to do that after. There are 2 bolts holding that in place, a lower bolt and an upper bolt. This one's hex, 6mm I believe. This one is Torx, I believe T40. And the top of the caliper, the left caliper, attaches to our delay valve in here, which is part of the secondary master cylinder. So it's not really bolted to the frame, or to the, I shouldn't say the frame, I should say the fork. It's bolted here to the, that's called a pivot, and that's part of your delay valve. So we have to take the left caliper off, the right caliper off, and we're just going to slide them back once the bolts are out. And I'm going to protect the wheel. I'm going to put a piece of plastic so that the right side of the left caliper does not scratch the nice black wheel over here. We'll get set up for that shortly. Alright, I've got my hex 6mm Allen key sitting in here, my socket, and I've got my T40 Torx ready to put into the upper bolt on the left caliper. First I'm going to take a piece of plastic, and I'm just going to kind of jam it in between the caliper and the wheel. Just jam it in there behind the fender. And the only reason for that, as I said, is I don't want to scratch my nice wheels when I take the caliper off. Okay, first, so we're going to loosen this with the T40. Take that one out. There was some, well, you can see it in here, hopefully you can, some Loctite, some thread sealant, thread locker in there from the factory. These have already been out once when I had my brake recall done, so when I reinstall these I'm going to put some blue medium strength locker in there. The factory service manual says replacing these bolts every time you take them on and off. I guess if you want to do it by the book, that's fine, but you know, the torque on these isn't that great. Yeah, they will stretch with time. I'm not telling you not to replace them, but I'm not going to. There's the bottom bolt with its thread locker. So now, carefully, I'm just going to slide the caliper off. Actually, one thing I forgot to tell you, I'm just going to put this bolt back in for 1 second and show you what I've done, or what I'm going to do, regarding the brake pads. So hold on. Hey, this is rather important. When those brake calipers are off, if someone were to touch the brake pedal or the brake lever, those pistons inside there will push out against nothing, and you'll have a heck of a time getting them back in. So they're going to be forced out. So what I did is really quickly, I just took a piece of scrap wood. I cut a couple of notches in it. One big notch for the handlebar grip, one smaller notch for the front brake lever, and this way nobody can come along and put my brakes on. So that way I'm good there. And of course these are link brakes, so don't forget about the rear brake, the pedal. So what I did here is I just took a piece of, I'll just lay it on the floor for you, piece of wood, cut a little notch in it, got it to the right height for my lift, cut a little piece of notch in it, and I just slide it under the brake pedal so that nothing's going to interfere and press on that brake pedal when the calipers are off, the left and the right caliper. So that's for safety. You don't want to mess up your pistons inside your calipers. That's the reason for that. Okay, so take off this bottom caliper bolt. The calipers are going to slide straight back and down, and you've got to kind of wiggle them a little bit to get it out of the bracket up here, up top. Okay, wiggling. Come on. Okay, I've slid the caliper away and I've turned it to its left, and you're looking right in at the brake pads here. And I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit for you. Here's the left pad and the right pad, and those grooves in the middle there are the wear bars, kind of the wear measurement. So when they wear down to almost the bottom of those grooves, it's time for new pads. My pads are good. Now what I've also done is I've taken a bungee cord, hooked it through where the lower bolt goes, and wrapped it around up here around my auxiliary light bracket. You don't want the brake hoses to support the weight of the caliper while you're working on it. It's not good for them. So just support your calipers up out of the way. Now the other thing I wanted to show you is right here inside the caliper swivel, where it swivels, is a collar. And that little collar, I'm just pushing it from the back with my finger. As you can see, it comes out. We're going to take that out later to lube it, because the whole left caliper pivots, and that's what works the delay valve. And I'll show you that shortly. I'm over on the right hand side now of the forks, and we're going to take off the right caliper. First I want to show you what I did with the bolts. These are the bolts from the left caliper. I labeled them left caliper, Torx is the upper bolt, so I just put those to the side. I've got my piece of protective plastic in here. Now on this side there's two bolts holding the caliper in, Now if you have an ABS bike, like a Goldwing or a Canadian or anything but a US F6B, you're going to have a third bolt. And the third bolt is right here. This little bolt holds a bracket which holds this wire in place. It just secures it. It's not structural, and this wire is the ABS sensor pickup that goes down here. There's the ABS sensor. Here's the ABS sensor ring, or the pulsar ring as it's called, and it's got teeth on there. So in order to take off this caliper bolt, the upper one, we have to take off this bracket because it's got a little protective piece of metal. I guess if it ever came loose, if this upper caliper bolt came loose, this would protect it from falling off. So the upper bracket holder comes off first. That's an 8mm bolt. Then we've got 12mm and the lower 12mm. So these two hold on the right caliper right there. So that's next. Okay, the 8mm bolt, and holding the bracket first. There's the bolt. And the bracket just slides off the back side. Here's the bracket. You can see that. And the bracket on the back has a captive built-in nut to it, so you don't have to worry about losing a nut. You can see it's like a nut built in, so I'm just going to tighten it down there so I don't lose that. Again, the service manual says to replace this when you take off the caliper, but I really see no need at all for that. It's just it's just holding on that that wire, sensor wire. Okay. All right, now as you can see, I've got that brake ABS sensor wire loose, so now I can access the top caliper bolt, and the bottom one is wide open. These don't have any kind of hinging, they don't move or anything like that. So I think I can squeeze around there. Yes, I can. Okay. Top one is loose. Get the bottom one loose now. And as you've noticed, I've got my protective plastic for the wheels. These upper bolts and lower bolts are identical, so no need worrying about mixing them up. There's the thread locking compound left over on there. So I will label these bolts shortly as soon as I get the right caliper off and bungee the right caliper. Okay, now I'm just going to wiggle this right caliper back and off, back and down. That one's off. Bungee it, and I can bungee it really anywhere here. I'm going to bungee it through, where's a good spot? There we go. The bottom, the pins for the brackets, I've bungeed it through, and then I'm wrapping it up top again around my auxiliary lighting. All right, next I'm going to loosen these two bolts. These are called pinch bolts. Just loosen them, they're 12mm. Not remove them. Then I'm going to remove the axle bolt. That's this big guy. This is a 22mm or 7/8 of an inch, I believe, fits the imperial size fits. I'm using 22mm. So it's a big one. I've got my my 1/2-inch drive tool for that. So let's loosen these first. The pinch bolts. 12mm. Careful to keep that ratchet head away from your disc. Okay, those are definitely loosened. Now I'm going to take out the axle bolt. This is torqued a little bit higher, so I got to give it some oomph. There we go. There's our axle bolt out. Next I'm going to loosen the two left pinch bolts, axle pinch bolts, loosen two of those. There is a hole through the actual axle where I'm going to put a screwdriver and I'm going to wiggle this axle bolt out, and as it pulls out, the wheel will just drop. So I got to be careful. I'll be sitting on the ground waiting for that. It's not that heavy, but you got to remember it's going to come down on you. Okay, let's loosen these. So these are the left axle pinch bolts, 12 millimeter. Again, be careful, don't do anything to the rotor. Okay, those are loose. Okay, I've got my screwdriver in here. I've got my knees underneath the wheel, and now I'm just going to wiggle that axle out. Okay, axle's out, wheel dropping down into my lap, and that's it. Front wheel off. This next step I'm going to show you is probably the most critical to doing this properly. First of all, some guys take in their wheels just like this to the wheel shop, leave the rotors on. I don't want to do that. Reason being, these rotors are really expensive, and it's not so much that the rotors can bend easily, it's these mounting aluminum, the bracket that holds it in place. This stuff can bend really easily. I mean, all it takes is a mistake by the tire installer. You're out 3/1000 of an inch, you got rotor wobble, and you're looking at buying a whole new rotor system. So I want to take the rotors off. It's not a big deal. To take them off, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hex bolts. That's all there is to it. Now, before we do that, you want to make sure, number one, that the rotors come off and go on the same side that they're supposed to be on, and number two, that the rotor holes align with the factory the way they came off of here, not to mix them up. And I'll show you how we're going to figure this out. First of all, on the wheel itself, direction of rotation. It's rotating, in this case, counterclockwise, so this has to be the left side of the wheel. I can also check the tire. The tire's got directional on it. Here it is here, and it's pointing also counterclockwise, left side of the wheel. So this is the left side of the wheel, and I'm going to label it. I've got some tape here, and I'll label it up and show you. The rotor also has directional on it, and that's right here as well, showing you that it is counterclockwise. But I'm still going to put tape on everything and mark it, so left, and I'm going to mark the wheel, I'm going to mark the rotor, and I'm also going to mark the alignment of the rotor so that I'm going to put it on the back side of the rotor where you can't see it. I'm going to put with a Sharpie an arrow pointing at the valve stem, and that way I'll know which of these bolt holes goes where. I want to get the same bolts back in the same holes. Okay, I'm going to label it, then I'll go over that with you. Okay, I've put a piece of tape there, and you can see it says left on it, and the arrow pointing in the direction of rotation, so this is the left side of the wheel. And on my rotor, I've put left, so I know it's the left rotor, and I mean I can't mess that up because I've got the pulsar ring on the right hand side, the ABS, but if you have an F6B or a GL 1800 without ABS, you can mix these up. So I've also put the left side and my arrow pointing to my tire valve to get it correct. So these are 6 millimeter hex, and I want to show you one more thing. This has to come out. This is a spacer to make sure that the spacing of the wheel when it goes back on is correct. Don't mix up the spacers. The short spacer is on the left hand side. Short by meaning it's about 1 inch wide. There's a different shaped spacer on the right hand side, and I'll show you that after. I'm going to leave it in here for now, but when I put the rotor away in the basement till I get my tires replaced, I'm going to keep that and label that spacer, that collar on there. Okay, time to take off the rotors. Loosen them. You can loosen them all. It doesn't really matter the order. They go on in a star-shaped pattern when you tighten and torque them down. I guess you could loosen them in a star shape, but again, who knows the last time they were tightened up. I didn't do it. It was when I had my brake recall done, so I'm just going to take them off and loosen them in a star-shaped pattern. All right, I've got the 6 bolts out. Again, they've got the thread locking compound on them. So they're all loose. Now just the rotor just lifts right off. Just lifts off the wheel like so. And on the back side, I have marked, I don't know how this will show up. I'm not too worried about getting anything because I have to, or like any dirt or anything on the rotors, because I have to clean them with brake cleaner once they're back on the bike before the calipers go over them. I've marked on the rotor, hopefully you can see it. I put left on the back side of this bracket, of the arm, with the arrow pointing to the valve, and I marked valve over here. So in case if something happens to that tape on the front, I can still align this correctly with the correct bolt hole on here. And at this point I'm going to take that collar out and I'm going to label it collar left and clean it up a bit. So there's the left collar. Alright, next I have to take off the right side rotor, but first I've got my pulsar ring that has to come off, and the reason it has to come off first is because this piece stays on the wheel and I can't get the rotor off without taking off this ring. So these are 3 Torx T25 screws, and then I've got the 6 rotor bolts to come off. I've labeled direction on it. The direction is already on here. I've labeled the wheel side, that's the right side, direction of rotation, and I've labeled the brake rotor, that's the right brake rotor, and I've pointed to where the valve is so that I get the correct alignment of the rotor going back on. I neglected to say something. I mean, it's obvious to guys who have worked on their bikes before, but if you haven't, I'm talking about right, left, right, left, right, left. Those directions, right and left, are always as if you're driving or sitting on the bike. So the right-hand side is the throttle side, the left-hand side is the clutch side. Just a standard nomenclature, a way of labeling sides of the bike so you can't mess it up. Okay, I've got, as you can see, the right rotor is off. The pulsar ring had to come off first. One last thing is the collar. This is a different collar. I'm going to pull this collar straight out. It's wider and it's got a flange on the right hand side. So just remember, this is the right side collar, flange out. Okay, I'm going to show you now the greasing of the bushings for the left caliper, because the left caliper rotates. It moves slightly to activate the delay valve. So on the top of the left caliper is a bushing right here. This bushing just slides out. It just pulls out. It's in fairly tight, and I want to lube it and clean it. There's the bushing. Inside there's nothing in there. It looks like a kind of a, I don't know, a phenolic, but that should be cleaned up and greased in there. So I'm going to just use some all-purpose synthetic grease for that. That's the top one. And in the lower left fork there's another bushing, and it's a longer one. And there's needle bearings in there. Hopefully you can see inside. You can see the little needles in there. That has to be greased inside, as well as putting some grease on the outside of the bushing and sliding it back in. Doing that now. I've greased that lower bushing. I put lots of grease on the needles. Then I put grease also on the bushing itself. There's going to be lots of excess, so make sure and wipe off both sides, the left and right side of this collar behind, and get that excess grease off before we don't want anything slinging up on the rotors when you reassemble everything. I got my front tire back from the tire shop. I had them install my new tires yesterday. And just before we reinstall the tire, I want to make a point about mounting the tire for you. I did my own balancing, but I had the tire shop and do the installation. On the wheel, Honda has a white dot. That is the heavy side of the wheel, and the Bridgestone tires have a yellow dot. That is the light side of the tire. So if you have a Goldwing with that white dot, line up the Bridgestone tire yellow with the wheel's white dot. If your wheel does not have a white dot on it, then usually you align the yellow, the light part of the tire with the valve stem. Okay, first I want to put the collars back in where the axles goes through. I'm going to first clean the inside of the dust seal over the bearing, the front wheel bearing. I'm going to clean that and put a little fresh silicone grease in there. That just keeps the dust seal pliable, soft, not brittle. And then I slide my small collar. Remember, I've got the 2 size collars here. The one with the flange goes on the right side of the wheel, the smaller one on the left side. Just push that in. Flip the wheel around. Here's the right side with the pulsar ring on it. Same thing, I'm going to clean the inside of the mount there where the dust seal is, clean it out, and reapply some fresh silicone grease. I don't want any grease on the outside that could be flung off and get on the rotors or the pads. So here's our larger collar, and this collar goes with the flange out. Push it in as far as it'll go. Alright, I'm now getting the front wheel into position. I'll lift it up into my lap, align it with the holes in the fork tubes, and slide the axle through from the left to the right. Here's my axle with the screwdriver through it. I'll lift this up. It's not too heavy. Okay, axle through the collar. Sliding it through. Right here is a little groove on the right hand side of the axle as I'm sitting in front of the bike. That's the left hand side of the bike, obviously, and we have to insert the axle so that this little flange, or this little groove on here, lines up with the left fork tube. So let's do that. And you'll see I don't have to move it over much. And just so it's flush right with the left fork tube, so that I can just see the axle line and the fork tube. It doesn't matter the orientation of the hole, whether it's up or down, I just leave it like that. And now I put in my axle bolt just to hold it secure. So axle bolt over here. No anti-seize. I'm going to just screw it in, seat it, but not tighten it yet. Next, we're going to tighten the left pinch bolts, the two pinch bolts here, to 16 foot-pounds. I'll just tighten them up a little bit, then I'll put the torque wrench on them. I've set my torque wrench up for 192 inch-pounds. I've got a couple of different torque wrenches, one's for higher torque, lower torque. This one's in inch-pounds, so 16 foot-pounds, 16 times 12 is 192. That's it. Okay, next we're going to tighten the axle nut to 44 foot-pounds. So finger tighten it first. Remember, the right pinch bolts are still loose. Torque wrench, 44. There we go. Before I reinstall the brake rotor, the calipers, I'm going to clean both sides of the rotors, both rotors, with brake cleaner. This is stuff I use. Any kind of brake cleaner is fine. Try not to get this stuff on your hands if it's the chlorinated stuff. I think I'm going to put on some gloves, nitrile gloves. Hold on. Okay. And I'm going to spray the back side of the rag and just rotate this around, trying not to get any stray lint or anything off of the rag. And you can see there's quite a bit of junk that came off of there. It could be brake dust, could be road grit, who knows, but there's stuff coming off of there. And I'll do the same thing for the other rotor. Next I'm going to reinstall, rehang both the right and left calipers. I'll just slide those into position, then I'll show you where the bolts go and how much to torque them. Okay, calipers are back on. The right side I've got to do my 2 bolts, 23 foot-pounds, 23 foot-pounds. So I'll crank on one of them a little bit. And the other one, doesn't take much. I've got quite a large torque wrench on here. It's at the bottom of the settings. 23, that's it. Then I have to put back on my clamp that holds the ABS wire. But first I'll torque the other side. Alright, the lower caliper bolt, which is the hex, 6mm hex, that's 23 foot-pounds. Remember we had the collar in there that we greased, and I wiped both sides of the grease off the back. I've done that already, so make sure your collar is back in if you took it out. That one. Next we've got the delay valve up here. Again, the bushing, we lubed the needle bearings inside there, we lubed the outside of the bushing, and the bracket itself I put some grease on the inside and outside of the grease as well. 19 foot-pounds for the upper joint. Last thing I've got on the right hand side is the restraining bracket for the ABS sensor wire. The nut plate again is built in. The nut plate goes on the back, and then the tab obviously fits over this reinforced part of the rubber. And slide that over and screw it on. There's a torque listing, but it's really irrelevant. This is just firm, not too tight. There's no pressure on the thing or anything like that. So I'll finger screw that in. And our wire here is clear of the bleeder valve rubber cover. The tab is over securely over the top of the caliper bolt. So now I can just get in there with my small 1/4 inch drive. I believe it's an 8mm. Yep. And just tighten that down so it's not going anywhere. Alright, now there's one more thing we have to do. That is, we have to adjust the pinch bolts so that everything is seated inside here, so the axle's seated. So what we're going to actually do is loosen one set of pinch bolts, bring the bike down on the floor, and then rock it a few times with the front brake on to make sure everything is level in there. Because when I spin the wheel, you can hear some rotor contact. I mean, it's really minor. You know, it's not stopping the brake or anything, but the rotor is touching the brake pads, and they will self-adjust once I pump the forks up and down with the brake on. So, like I say, next I'll bring the bike down and we'll loosen the pinch bolts and I'll rock it. Alright, we'd previously torqued the left axle pinch bolts. We're going to loosen them now. Okay, and now I'm going to bring the bike down off the stand. Time to remove my brake safeguards. I can take this off. And down here I've got the foot pedal restraint. Take that off. Now I can lower the bike. This is extension cord for my battery maintainer, which is on all winter long. It's on, plugs in, of course, on the battery side, left side of the bike. All I need to do is make sure my kickstand, side stand is down, and then I'll show you what it looks like when you lower the bike off the lift. Side stand down on the left side of the bike. With my lift, I have to raise it up and then loosen some restraining bars. Flip these up and slowly lower it down. Bike's down. Slide the side stand out, or the lift out. Okay, now I'm going to pump up the brake, rock the bike up and down. There we go, it took about 10 pumps to bring those pistons in. Brake is nice and solid. Now I'm going to put the bike back up on the lift. We'll check the clearances and then reinstall the front fender. Okay, that's finished. Now retighten the pinch bolts to 192 inch-pounds. What was that, 16 foot-pounds, something like that? I'll double check, I don't want to make a mistake here. It was pinch bolts, yes, 16 pounds, 16 foot-pounds, 192 inch-pounds. So I'll just retighten these, use a longer extension. Spin the wheel for you. And then I'm going to just put the fenders back on. I'm not going to bother showing you that, that's really easy. So, skip that out. Okay, let's spin the wheel. And you can expect some drag on there. The pads actually always do touch the rotors. So that's normal. That's it, job done. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, you can certainly relay them to me through YouTube, or I'll post these on a couple of Goldwing and F6B forums. Hope you enjoyed this one.